Hi guys, today we will showcase a new marketing automation solution Paminga I've just partnered with, and we'll start with one aspect that's crucial to align marketing and sales, the synchronization with your CRM. Paminga is natively synced with Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, and IFS CRM, and more to come. And we will see today a demo with Salesforce and more precisely how we will map the fields, and there are very cool functionalities on this aspect compared to the solution I know. Let's see that. So here I'm in my new Paminga instance, and I've started with the Salesforce synchronization. I've already connected my Salesforce with Paminga through an authentication. Very easy, just have to input your login password and verify with the double authentication in Salesforce. You're not obliged here to have a dedicated user for Paminga. You can perfectly use an admin user for that. Why is that? You can manage the rights and what Paminga will see either in Salesforce as usual, with a dedicated user, dedicated profile, dedicated fields, and so on and so forth. Or you can just sync with a user admin and manage what Paminga will see directly in Paminga. On the Paminga side, you may decide exactly which object you will allow Paminga to see and to sync with, and you also decide exactly what field will arrive in Paminga. That's a very cool feature because it means that you're not obliged to wait for your IT CRM admin. Here in the settings, you can here enable and disable the sync. You can say here that you have a special Salesforce situation without the campaigns. You can indicate your email to have notification regarding the full sync and the errors. Paminga can decide not to sync all the lead score change on the Salesforce side. Very cool feature here. You can decide whether Salesforce can write empty fields to Paminga or the same on the other side. And that's something I want because I very often put null to certain values in Salesforce or in my marketing automation. I want that to be pushed on the other side, and sometimes not working. And here you can decide to sync your email and events, to Salesforce. But we'll see in another tip that you have a Paminga iframe that you can insert in Salesforce so that your sales are aligned with what happened on the marketing side for this prospect. And you can decide to sync your Salesforce campaign with lists in Paminga. Obviously, in Salesforce, you have to put a default account name and a default last name, because if, for instance, you catch a visitor with just the email, for instance, for the newsletter subscription, and you want to push this email directly in Salesforce, Salesforce will ask for at least a last name and an account name. So here, nothing new. We'll see in another tip that you can fine-tune exactly the order assignation. You can fine-tune which object you can see, but I don't have those options yet. I have to ask that for the support. The cool thing I wanted to show you was the field mapping here. So as soon as I've connected Paminga with Salesforce, Paminga has read the Salesforce data model and brought all the fields for the account, the contact, and the lead. And I can here by default see all the fields that are mapped. Basically, Paminga will map all the standard fields on the marketing automation side and the Salesforce side. For instance, the account name, the account phone, that's standard and that has to be mapped. But the cool thing is that by default, Paminga will not map all the fields arriving with Salesforce, so that you will not end up in your Paminga with hundreds or thousands of unused fields that are impossible to remove or rename. Here, very good news, only the useful field will be mapped. On top of that, once a field is mapped and used somewhere in Paminga, you can still rename it and you can still delete it. That's incredibly cool coming from Marketo, where we have great difficulties to maintain the hygiene of the database, because once a field is created, it will never be removed from the database. Here you can have total control on the fields you want in Paminga. On top of that, as soon as you have just mapped this field account source, so the good news also is that I can directly create in Paminga fields on the account in Paminga. I'm not obliged to ask for the support for that. And I can directly create this field from the mapping field here. I've done that, and decide whether Salesforce can update this field and in Paminga, and Paminga can update this field in Salesforce. And this is dynamic. I can remove that. So here basically nothing will go back and forth, and here everything will go back and forth. Another very cool feature for us marketing ops is that I can control my list of values. For instance, here account source in my Salesforce is based on the list of value. And if here the field is already created, but let's imagine I want to recreate the field, Paminga will detect that this is a dropdown type. And I have to choose one of the dropdown I've prepared beforehand in Paminga, so that this field will have only those values accepted in it, and I will be able to use that in my form when I will use. So I can say this is the dropdown I want to use for this field, so that no more unwanted values in my list of values on the marketing side. I can create my dropdown here, and this is so I've prepared that beforehand. I've prepared this source list of value that it can apply to multiple fields. So this is valid for the lead, for the contact field, and for the account field. This one. So it's in French, obviously. I will be able to translate that directly in my form if I want. That's pretty cool. Another cool thing that you see is that Paminga is pretty fast. I love that. So here, for instance, if I want, let's see, a field that is not mapped. Let's imagine I want this customer date, which in my CRM is updated as soon as an account becomes a customer. We have this customer date. I want that in Paminga. So here I will directly map and create the field. So first, Paminga recognizes which type this field is in Salesforce and align with the type and pre-populate the name. That's very cool because I don't have to do that. I just have to save. And here is my field created on the account. And I can sync that with Paminga and Salesforce if I want to update that. So let's imagine I will not update that in Paminga. I just want Salesforce to input that in Paminga. That's how I do. And same for the contact and the lead mapping. I can directly create fields on the fly on the mapping, and they will be created on the person table in Paminga. Same as usual, lead fields and contact fields can be mapped on a unique field in Paminga. I just have to map the contact field from Salesforce and the lead field from Salesforce on the same field in Paminga. So here, for instance, this ABM field on the contact is mapped with my PFDI ABM in Paminga. And if we look at lead mapping, it's the same, meaning that, this ABM field on the lead is mapped with the same field in Paminga, meaning the mapping will be consistent whether the lead is pushed in Salesforce on a lead or a contact. Another good news, if I want, I can directly create in Salesforce contact and accounts, which is not the case for Marketo. I can only create leads. So again, I'm in control. If I want to do that, I can do that. I can stick with the normal process to push my hot leads to leads in Salesforce and manage the qualification, conversion, deduplication, and enrichment in Salesforce through the Salesforce fields. But if I want, I can directly create accounts in Salesforce and contact. That's pretty cool, and that gives me more control regarding my sync. So plenty of cool functionalities regarding better data quality, better database hygiene. More control for myself as a marketing ops on my thing. I love that. And we'll see in the following tips, this iframe that I can put in Salesforce for my sales. And we will see another cool functionality that requires a full tip. The action I can directly do when a contact or lead arrives in Paminga. I can, for instance, directly push this person into a list, a webhook, trigger an automation, and do whatever I want in Paminga. Pretty cool.